Well, before we get started with anybody's questions, I wanted to kind of go over some of the things that I've been seeing in the Google group. Um, One of the issues that had come up that seemed to come up for more than one person was the fact that, let me see if I can come over to a draft while I'm talking about it. So when you are viewing a draft, there is a big blue apply button or a purple apply button that allows you to quickly publish a draft. So just like this. This blue apply button for some folks has been kind of disappearing or getting rid of the most recent changes. And so if that is happening to you, the workaround for now is to just go through the draft instead. So instead of using the apply button when you're viewing the draft, click through to edit draft. And then as you usually save from this side at the very bottom of the page, just make sure to change the moderation state to published and then save. That will guarantee that your changes will stick. We are trying to get our tech team to resolve this as quickly as they can, but we're barely getting into the investigation of what the cause could be. So that's a note. And I do want to make another announcement in the Google group about that. So keep an eye out for that as well. All right, so I think this is our group today. It might be easier if I make a little note of at least the order of our questions. I could also make a note of what our questions are about to see if anybody has overlapping questions. But whoever wants to chime in or with a hand raised, however you'd like.
Well, I have, you just answered one of my questions.
Okay, awesome.
But I'm having trouble with the WYSIWYG. And I'm also having trouble with adding graphics to my page and having the graphics disappear.
Okay. And the graphics disappearing, is that possibly related to the apply button issue that we were just talking about?
Well, it's possible, but they disappear regardless of what I use to publish it. I've tried it both ways.
Okay.
They disappear both ways.
Okay.
What do you mean by disappear, just so we understand what the issue is?
So what I've done is I've added some graphics to my page and put links on them and everything looks fine when I'm using Firefox, because I'm I'm having trouble with Chrome where I'm not even seeing anything in the WYSIWYG mode. But so when I go to Firefox, then I go ahead and make the changes to my page. Everything looks good. I publish it. And when I look at the published version, the graphics are completely gone.
Are these within text, or are they the masthead or whatever that's called?
Okay. So it's within the main body.
Okay, thanks. Because I had a masthead. Well, it's not masthead.
Yeah,
the hero
image.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had one that somehow wasn't showing, and so I just uploaded it again with a shorter name. But that's different. So let's go ahead with yours, Maddie.
Okay.
Maddie, were the images still in the media library?
Well, they were like a placeholder. So the particular page is the frequently asked questions, if you want to go there.
Oh, that's right. Yes. And so are the images down, and they're no longer here, correct?
So the text that I added, which says, how can I spot mis and disinformation? All the text is still there. But those second two bullet points had images under them that were like screenshots of, well, not screenshots. Yeah, I guess they were screenshots of slides with some mnemonics and things like that to help people, you know, spot misinformation. And those pictures of those slides completely disappeared here. There's not even a space where they were, but if you go to the edit mode, you
Mhm.
see that there's a like a placeholder for those images.
Okay.
Okay, and if you're in Chrome, you see nothing. Okay, there you go.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's double check. I don't know if it has anything to do with the display as. No. Okay. So I'm not sure why they're broken. My solution, if this ever happens, would just be to try again. Are the images
I
still
tried it about
uploaded?
5 times, different ways.
Yeah, from beyond that, after trying, I would try to see if I can get the tech team to give me some advice here. But let's try it, and I'll take a note of it if it's still broken here. So guide me to the image. Is it under my files?
It would be under my files for me, yes.
Okay.
And so probably I'm having a little bit of a hard time here.
Sorry, let me zoom in a little here.
Okay, I can see it. It's the second one from the left.
Second one. Okay.
And it's
Let's just double click that. And then display as, we're going to leave that as full content
okay.
and
Yeah, which I have
submit.
not been doing because it, yeah.
Because it's so large. If so, and you had mentioned in the Google group that depending on the browser, you sometimes cannot resize the image with the border. So if that's the case, I'm re-clicking the media browser button so that I can change the display as to thumbnail. That is another reliable option because it'll allow me to have an image that's about 30% smaller, and I can resize from there if I'm using Chrome or Internet
Right.
Explorer.
I saw that you had the little handles on there even when you did the full size. So you could have done it
Yeah.
even for the other one. But yeah, because
Definitely.
I'm doing it through Firefox, I don't get the little handles and I can't change anything.
Yeah, that's unfortunately the downside there. Well, let's try it with just one of the images. Oops. And see just as a draft. Let's hope that that sticks. Okay. So we'll definitely look into this more, Maddie. I will be connecting with you either before or definitely after I connect with the tech team about this issue.
If it weren't in a bulleted list like this, do you think it would show? Could it have something to do with the fact that it's bulleted?
That's a good thought. Let's try that out. While we have a draft going, we might as well attempt that. I'm gonna come back in and see if when I get down to this line,
Oof.
what I'm going to do is just disable when actually, sorry, I'm going to redo that. So get my own bullet so that I'm not interfering with the Think Sheep from USC Annenberg. Now I'll disable the bullet. And now it's a blank line, and let's see if that does make a difference. Thanks for that, Liz. Fingers crossed once again. Okay, second image. We'll go for thumbnail so I don't have to resize it myself. And I'm just going to get rid of that little extra line that was added. Okay, let's attempt that. Image. All right. Okay. Um, I definitely would have you try it on the second one yourself and see if that does make the difference of making sure that the bullet is not enabled or is disabled there. But I have made a note if that doesn't work for you, that I can let the tech team know. Thank you for that, Maddie and Liz.
Thanks, Liz.
Well, it's like doing it 5 times. You just have to keep trying something.
Exactly. It's like, what's different about this situation? Let's try every option.
There you go. Yeah, and it definitely helped to have multiple sets of eyes on it.
Mhm.
I have a question about linking to something stored on the MyLO site
Mhm.
from, let's say, an email, and the possibility that lots and lots of people might want to pursue that link all at the same time. How much business can a link on MyLO accept?
We definitely have a lot of safeguards in place that allow us to handle the traffic. We like to use election day as an example for this because that's when we get a lot of our traffic. Well, most of our traffic spikes happen on that day. So we're able to handle the spikes that happen on those days when people are most seeking information. So it's a good example for any other situations where you might be promoting something that would be just specific for your league or maybe in your area. We're still going to be able to handle that capacity.
Okay, well, the reason for the inquiry is that we have just discovered that Gmail will clip a long message, which those of us who don't use Gmail don't realize. We're trying to figure out how to get our rather lengthy newsletter out so that it displays in full to people without them having to poke around. We're afraid we're losing readers. And we do put the newsletter out on MyLO for people. And if we just use that as our base and refer people to that, is that going to be an acceptable approach?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Similar to how some folks are using the articles. It's almost like how their newsletter works. It's an online version of their newsletter. So that is a good alternative for email or print type stuff, having it on your website.
Super, good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we do too. Under newsletter, I just upload our voter and, it's also on the front page, but yeah, so under newsletters is all our voters, and then those are all, you just click on the date and you
Are
go to.
they
Yes.
PDFs? Oh.
Yes, the PDFs.
And that's what we do, but we haven't used that as a place for everybody to go to see the newsletter. And when we do this, we also discovered that we use Constant Contact to develop the newsletter. And I was saving PDFs from there, and that made all the links go dead. But Constant Contact had a way to save it so that the links remained functional.
Mhm.
And then I put that onto MyLO, and that's a nice solution to that problem.
But can I just follow up on that, Mary Jo? So I'm not clear what you're saying because we use Constant Contact too, and we have a newsletter that just goes to supporters and members, and then we have a members only. But I post the one that goes to more people on our MyLO site, and I use the archive thing, which I guess that isn't the PDF, is it? Now that I think about it,
Yeah, I think that is a bit
it's a
different.
link. But you're saying the PDF, the links lose, huh? That's interesting. Okay,
But
yeah,
I called Constant Contact and they told me what to do, and there's an
Yeah.
easy solution.
yeah, no, okay, thank you.
Well, if your URLs are too long, you can use bit.ly or something to make a smaller one that won't be clipped by the Gmail.
Yeah, if that is part of the issue, go to
No, it's the
BIT.
message gets clipped, not the
Oh,
address.
because it's just a longer message to the entirety
Yeah.
of it.
And we're afraid people are not seeing the click here for more at the bottom of the page. And so they just think that's it and go on to other things.
I see.
Spoon
But that-
feeding our readers.
You
But
might
you-
consider putting into the body of your message before the cutoff, because I'm assuming it's probably a default number of characters that they're using or displaying by default. So
Seems to be.
you could maybe add a link in the middle that says, you know, continue reading this or read this in full here, and provide that link. But it sounds like you're also on your way to an online solution anyway, for it to just all be on your site.
Yeah, working on it. Thank you.
Definitely.
Excuse me.
Let's see,
Since
Anybody
it's
have-
quiet, I have another quick question.
for sure.
I was looking at our users. We have different people who are signed in with the capability to do administration on our website. And it looks like any admin person can create another admin person. There's no top boss who makes admins and nobody else. Is that correct?
Yes,
Oh,
that is
So-
correct.
So we don't hand these out casually is what you're telling me.
We do not. We are usually either getting contact from that person directly, where they're letting us know that they are the new person, the new contact for this league, or it is kind of a handoff where the current webmaster is introducing us to that new webmaster. So we aren't just letting anybody become a webmaster. We do need to know that they are at least part of the board or some part of the leadership of that league. So if they're coming to us by themselves, we at least try to poke around the website. And if we see their name listed near your leadership page, then we say, okay, they're good to go.
I was able to set up an assistant webmaster myself, and that seemed to work after some thought.
so what's an assistant webmaster? They wouldn't have as many,
Just to be clear, they do have the same
Oh.
permissions.
She can
Right.
do anything I can do, so I need to be sure she's reliable and a good person, and she's great, so that's fine.
That is
Well,
awesome.
I was just thinking in terms of, you know, maybe somebody just volunteered to monitor it or something. Can you have somebody that can go, well, actually, they wouldn't have to go inside because they could just read it like anybody else, so. I guess what I was going to ask is, can you have somebody that can, you know, go into it behind the scenes, but not be able to change anything?
No, there are only 3 levels of membership, or technically 2. The third level is the MyLO team, which is the full administrative permissions, and then the webmasters who have some limited administrative privileges, and then the MyLO type of user who would be seeing your members only if they belong to your league.
Okay, thank you.
But I had been thinking of the possibility of having our advocacy team come up with a person who was authorized just to manage the advocacy page. And I thought that would be wonderful, but it looks like that's not possible. And I don't want somebody with capabilities to do anything wandering around in the website.
I see. Yeah, no, there isn't a way to gatekeep and say you're only allowed in this section of the site. It would be based on their integrity and them staying away from the other parts.
I had a question. Maddie, did you have one?
Well, I just wanted to ask Amaris if anybody is explicitly looking at the problem that I'm having with Chrome. Has that gone to the tech team, or do you think that's?
It has not yet. Are you talking about the WYSIWYG
Yeah.
issue where it comes up blank?
Right. And I did try, I had flipped back and forth between HTML And if I go to plain text, it shows me the HTML, which I don't think is correct either. You know, so I don't know if it's something about my computer, but you know,
Definitely, if you're still having the issue after the office hours, we can spend a few minutes investigating it, because then I can have you share your screen with me.
okay.
I
Yeah.
definitely have had the issue happen before. And just to clarify what the issue is, sometimes when you click over to new draft or edit draft, what can happen, and like I said, I've seen it happen to me before, the body area, the entire page will load, but the contents or within the body area remain blank. And
Okay.
so my solutions have been, when I've experienced it, either trying to disable rich text and then re-enable it and clicking in here a few times, and then same thing, changing from WYSIWYG to full HTML or plain text, as Maddie was saying, and then clicking and changing back to WYSIWYG and then clicking in here a few times. Because those solutions haven't worked, I definitely want to check in with you and see if it is, yeah, I'm not sure what it would be. Because I've had it happen before, I'm assuming it might be more Chrome than anything. But have any of y'all experienced that before?
Not exactly, but it seems to happen a lot that what you see in draft mode is not what you get in the published version.
Well, that's a little different than what I'm explaining. The body area would just be completely blank.
Yeah. And that only happens to me in Chrome. That's why I went and made my changes using Firefox. But then that has other limitations, like I can't resize the graphics.
Yeah, and that definitely can be annoying to work with when you're just trying to zip through the images and make them look the way you want.
Yeah.
Um,
Taking up a lot more of your time than you expected.
I'm sorry.
I said it can just end up taking up a lot more of your time than you expected, because you think you know what you're doing and then it doesn't work.
And it presents that limitation there. Yeah, off the top of my noggin, I don't know what the cause could be, but I definitely want to poke around with that with you some more and see what we can come up with there.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
No, I'm sorry, Mary Jo. I think I can't.
Oh, no, because mine is not not technical. First of all, I don't know anything about the apply button, so I'm not going to worry about it. And I don't use Chrome. I typically have both up, but there's certain things I have to use Chrome for, and so I don't know. I just kind of keep the so I don't know, not Explorer, but what's the other one?
Microsoft Edge.
Yeah. So I use that, and I haven't had an issue. I can't imagine, not being able to see your stuff. But what I wanted to ask about was, I know that I asked this once before about where on the website is there a link to the National League? And I forget what you said, Amaris, but I know that there's a reason why you don't have that link on our MyLO. So anyway, I was thinking, they put out a blog, which I think is kind of neat. And so I'd like to have, like the URL for the blog somewhere. And I'm just wondering if does anybody have that blog anywhere? I was thinking maybe I would create a page under about, and then maybe say something like more about national and state or something, and then just have some URLs. I don't know. Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying?
We don't have a link to the National League anywhere on MyLO.
That's what I thought.
I don't know if there's any particular reason why. It's just that MyLO is a product of the League of Women Voters of California. So we do have a link to their MyLO site, and their MyLO site
Right.
might have a link back to their main site. But but you definitely can add a link to their blog anywhere that you'd like on
Yeah.
your site.
I just wondered if anybody had yeah, that I was thinking about maybe under About Us, but I don't know. Because I don't know. I mean, I don't know where else to put it.
You could even put it in the header of your articles, possibly. It depends on how you have the layout of it now.
Well, I mean, those are just, boom, boom, boom articles. So I don't know. You know what I mean? It's not like there's a page of introduction and then
you have your
go to
sidebar. Yeah, I don't know. This is kind of like the social area a little bit with the newsletter as well. So that might not be a terrible spot.
Oh,
and
I
just
see what
to
you're saying.
show folks what you're talking about as far as the blog. LWV.org. I think it's down here. Yeah.
Yeah, there it
Link
is.
to the blog. So the address is just lwv.org/blog. Yeah, that's not a bad idea to link to that.
Yeah, it's got good information. And I wish they, well, they send out that, like we got the highlights today. And I think that would be okay for other people to see, right? Well, no, maybe not, because that's not on their website. No, forget that. If I had a
The
members
blog
only.
is this is pretty public information as
The
far as
pu-
this,
the
but
bu-
is
The blog is, but
okay.
not the members, the highlights thing we got today.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Mary.
Camera, while you're on that page,
Mhm.
we had trouble on the left side there.
Mm-hmm. With the menu or this section here, the sidebar.
The sidebar.
Mhm.
You've got spaces between like vote 411 and subscribe and your Twitter. We were putting a picture with a link to vote 411 and then a picture of a voter's pamphlet with a link to it.
Mhm.
And they were right next to each other. There was no space between them.
Okay.
We were not using embedded code or anything. And we finally went to what you had showed me in a video about putting a word and going into the HTML and experimenting to see which HTML link worked the best, a break or a paragraph or whatever. And we did it that way. Is there a better way to do that?
I believe so. Are your buttons or are the items in the sidebar, are they still scrunched together as you were explaining?
No, my co-webmaster, Jan, went in and put in an HTML code.
Okay.
They
I'm
look
going to see
fine
if I can recreate what I'm thinking it looked like at first, and then see if that looks like what it looked like for you, and then I can provide a solution on that, if that makes sense. So I'm going to come over to a demo site. Let's see. I have some stuff in the sidebar. Let's play around with that. So I think that it could have just been the way that the spacing was formatted. So I'm going to come down to the sidebar on this demo site. Sidebar content. Actually, we're going to remove this code, and I'm going to drop in a couple images just to recreate what you were saying. You had a couple of images, right, Mary?
Yeah, two.
Okay. I'm going to add a couple of thumbnail versions. That's a little hard to see. Probably not the best option, but it's okay. And let's go with vote. Okay, sorry. So I'm quickly adding those images in. So right now we have a space between them. You can tell that I can't click into it with my mouse, but we can see there that there's a bit of space. And that is because these images are set with paragraphs. So around them, they're padded with paragraph. And by default, paragraph gives a nice little spacing between each paragraph, so that every time you hit enter or return, you are going to have that little cushion between each paragraph there. If you are working with, and I'm going to highlight both of these so I can change them from paragraph to div. If you're working with div, it will automatically get rid of those spaces in between the paragraphs so that every line is right on top of the other. This is what I'm assuming was happening with your images, or this is how they were set. So if that was the case,
We had just hit enter a couple times. to
and that,
space them
yeah,
apart.
totally. That is
And
the easy way to do it. But if you wanted to get rid
Did it
of,
look like that when we saved it?
I'm sorry.
I don't know if we were using paragraph or div,
Okay.
but we would hit the space bar to space them apart. We'd hit a return.
To separate it one more line. That is an easy solution as well, because this mimics the
didn't work.
same padding. It
No,
did
that
not
didn't-
work.
No, then they were right next to each other.
Okay. It might be a little bit difficult then for me to try to recreate the situation because I'm not entirely sure of what size the images were, if they were small enough to fit on one line, or if they were set to paragraph and you were hitting enter and they weren't moving, that might make a difference in how they were formatted as well.
Can
But
you
you
look
said
at
they-
an older draft? Don't we have all the different versions of her page?
If it was in the sidebar content, then that
Yeah.
won't be saved in the
Oh.
moderate or in the revisions.
Okay.
While we're there, is this the point at which you can put the colored behind? I saw these follow us on social media and the orange background and then the listing of all the Twitter and Facebook icons. Is this
Yeah,
where
let's-
you do that?
Yeah, how
Um,
did you do that?
Yeah, so let me open up that page one more time just to show what we're talking about. This was on the Dearborn Heights League site down here. So we just added the images first, linked them to each of the respective social media sites. And then this yellow background is the notice formatting. So let's
Oh,
recreate that.
Before you hop on to the next step,
Huh?
we have a bunch of HTML to create those images, and that's how you set us up back when. But I can just go and find a Facebook image and post it as if it's an image and then put a link to it and I get the same results.
One step easier, you can find Facebook images already uploaded in the media library.
Yeah,
There's a
right.
ton of them. So
Oh,
if
good.
you're
So
looking for just the Facebook logo, you could find one and yeah, drop it in and then add the link to it.
So I can get rid of the HTML and the world will continue to turn.
Well, if it is HTML, it may be that if you swap it back to WYSIWYG that they are images. Was it HTML code that was used to
It's
generate?
code. It's code, and then it creates the image when we save it and publish.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure, but yes, you definitely can get rid of it and add your own images.
Super. Thank you.
Okay, so I have, actually, let's add this little circular one. Just for an example. And I'm just going to connect it to Facebook's homepage. So I've selected the image and we are just going to type in, yeah, facebook.com. We'll have that open in a new window. And that's it. So I would link all three of them, but I won't do that now. adding a little bit of text at the top. Follow us. Okay. So with everything highlighted that I want to see inside of that yellow box, I have chosen notice. And actually, now I'm realizing that it did take a little bit of HTML tweaking to get these little separators, the little separations from displaying. So in order to get those to disappear, it did require a bit of tweaking on the full HTML side. So essentially, to give you an example, I feel like we've talked a bit about this before, but as a refresher, hopefully you won't always have to remember this. When you're looking at the full HTML side and you know you have images added into the box, images are always contained within double brackets. I say that just so that you can recognize that that's the first image, so that, whoops, this next section here is the first division. I'm going to replace the div tags with break tags. So in the div tags, we're creating the line to separate each image, and the br tag is instead a break, and is essentially like hitting the return key without making that distinction of it being a brand new notice box. So again, I have the second image. So I have the first set of brackets, and I'm just going to try to find the second set. There we go. That end it. And then div brackets. I am replacing with the BR.
Mm.
So I just did that for a couple. Whoops. I'm not sure what happened there. It disappeared.
I
My
think you
first.
took out the div notice. When you took out div, you took out div notice.
You took out the class notice.
Yeah.
And that was what I was trying to take out as well, but I'm not sure why the image is gone.
Oh,
It's definitely something to play around with and reach out if you have questions, because I know that obviously now I know that it took me a while to play around with and
And just so
refigure
you
out.
know, I did not do that. Emira's did that for us way in the beginning.
Yeah. And so I
It
think
looks
that's
good.
why I need to get a little refresher before I do that again, I guess. Okay, so we'll act like that didn't even happen. Any other questions?
I do have one other question. When we use the headings, they don't
Mhm.
always show up with the same size text. And that's another thing that happened to me on my frequently asked questions page, where
Okay.
I added the how can I spot mis and disinformation, and I made it, I believe, heading 2,
Mhm.
the same as the headings on the other, top level things, but the text is smaller, even though it's a heading 2. So
And
Yeah,
wondering,
that happens a lot.
did
yeah,
it remain small after saving?
yes,
It's,
Okay.
it,
Is it
it,
still there?
yes,
it shows up different in the draft than it does in the public.
right. But then when I published it, it was still smaller.
Okay. We can usually fix that with or resolve that with the remove formatting icon, the little eraser icon.
Okay.
But for the situation that you're explaining, it sounds like it is only going to be visible once you save it, just because it's displaying as you expect it to in the draft.
No,
Um,
no, it's not as
It's not?
I expect in the draft, and it's not as I expect after it's published.
Oh,
But
okay.
same, they're both heading 2.
Okay. If it is not looking the way that you expect it to while it's in the draft, then you can catch it before you save it.
Okay,
Um,
I'm gonna change it.
so which is the heading?
So if you scroll down to, or actually you can click on, yeah. So how can I spot mis and disinformation and the basics of voting are both heading 2.
Okay.
Oh,
I see. And yeah, we can see the difference. Basics of voting is a bit bigger than the other one. So let's edit the draft. And sorry, let me make sure that the draft looks the same because we were just looking at the published
Okay.
version.
I've had this
Um,
problem also.
Yeah, I have two.
Okay. So let's edit the draft. Like I said, if you're seeing the difference or, that thing, the size is not as expected while you're still in the draft, then you have the chance to catch it before you save it. So highlight the heading, and we're going to reset the formatting. So whatever formatting you have set here, you'll want to remember it so that you can add that after. But remove that formatting.
Interesting, because I see that it's special, and I did that because the other ones were special also. And so I made this one special, hoping that this would make it the same, but it didn't. So I'm not sure what special means.
Special just makes it a serif font.
Oh, okay.
But
So,
you know, if you look at the HTML, it may be that there's other stuff in there that left over from your pasting it in.
It could be, but I'm hoping that we can resolve it in just the WYSIWYG side. So my first attempt, I highlighted just the entire phrase and hit remove formatting. Nothing changed. So my next attempt is going to be highlighting the line above it as well. I'm hoping that it will not affect our anchor here, but I won't save anything just yet. I just want to see if this will have the desired effect. So highlighting the line above it as well, remove formatting. There we go. So not only do you want to highlight the entire phrase that's being affected, but highlight above or below it as well, just so that you're actually no, above it is the best way, because catching the line above it ensures that you're catching any HTML that is before this. So that HTML that's before it would be affecting this, but because I was only highlighting the phrase itself, it could have been missing any of the HTML that was sitting in front of it.
and now if you make it special again, it'll make it have the serif form that all the others have. So now it should match the others, right?
Yes. So, and let's see, I'm not able to see them at the same time, but I'll go ahead and save this as a draft. I think I didn't make any other unnecessary changes there.
You know, I have a question. If you have a draft and you just want to get rid of it and you know, go basically back to what was published before,
Mhm.
can you do that? Can you do that like in Moderate or something? Or is there a way
No.
to just throw away your draft?
You would do that in Moderate. So just to show, yay, okay, it actually worked. I'm happy about that. Okay, yes, so Moderate tab, that is where you will see all of your previous revisions, and you can revert back to any previous version. So
I'm always very nervous about those commands, especially the one that says delete. And I'm not sure what each one of these do. Can you
oh, for sure.
explain what they
So, and I'll give you, what I usually do as well when I'm going through this. So, I usually right click and into a lot of these when I'm viewing them, because sometimes I may not be adding the note for myself to know exactly which revision it is. And sometimes we have multiple revisions in one day. And so it's hard to know exactly what that is. So if I'm ever viewing them, I am opening them in multiple tabs. And one thing to note too, if you're doing that, the revision number is in the URL. So let's say I've looked at multiple and I say, okay, I don't like this one. I'm gonna close that. And I like the revision 329012. So when I come back over here, I know that I'm looking for this revision. And once I click revert, then it's going to give me a confirmation page. And then I don't want to test that out here. I'm going to just quickly swap back over to the demo. But when you click on revert, it gives you that confirmation page where I believe it asks for the moderation notes or revision notes. So just like when you are saving a draft or publishing the draft, you get the box for moderation notes. When you are reverting to a different revision, you're required to leave a revision note. So sometimes I just say I'm reverting back to a previous version. So it's not really a good explanation, but it does require that you add something into there. So let's pretend.
When you click on revert, you are selecting this revision to be the one you're reverting to. Is that-
Exactly.
And if you
So-
change your mind, you can go back to a more current one.
Yes. So if let's see, my most current at this moment is 328977. And I'm going to revert back to 753, or the last three numbers there. It should keep this as the second to last, or the second most recent revision.
And when you revert, that creates a new line in moderate, right?
Yes.
So the one you reverted to is now at the top.
It is.
Correct.
It is actually its own version. So this is,
Yes.
whoops, this is technically the one we reverted to, but now we have a new version of that original one.
I guess that's what
So,
I'm trying to say. Thanks for.
okay, yes. Yeah, it's definitely confusing but we're on the same page.
And in this multiverse that we have now entered, if we revert to an older version and now we modify that one, we're creating a whole new thread of changes, right?
That is correct.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but that's the good thing, so that almost every step of the way you are having some accountability there, so that in case you make an unnecessary change or something happens, you can usually go back and say, okay, I'm going back to 3 o'clock today where I didn't have any mess ups or what have you.
True.
And so what does delete do?
It
When-
will delete that revision. It is really a very underused function, and understandably so. Most of the time, you don't need to clean up your revisions as far as like the moderate tab goes, because these are just visible to webmasters.
So it deletes that line, and then you can no longer revert back to it because it's gone. Is that correct?
Correct. Mhm.
But it doesn't delete anything on your page. It doesn't delete your page. It doesn't.
Right. Right. If you have, well, let's create a new, an existing draft so that you can see what the difference is. And sorry, I'm going to show you one more time before I create the draft. The moderate tab the way it looks now is the published version is always in green. And it's going to sit somewhere near the top when it is the only version or the only revision. So to say that there is no draft existing, the published revision will sit at the very top. Let's come on back. I'm not going to make any changes, but I'm just going to save the draft.
Because it has the unpublished option, does that turn it back into a draft? And does that automatically revert to the one before it? In the does it I mean, because you need something published, right? Or do
You don't always need something published, but you can unpublish it and it would revert back to actually
the prior published version?
that is a good question. Let's make a change to this draft because I don't know exactly which draft it would revert back to. So I'm just going to add, this is a draft, even though we're going to publish this, but just so that that's very obvious. So right now I'll save this as a draft. Let's make sure that, okay, that was added. All right, so the draft has the line, this is a draft. Let's go ahead and unpublish the published version, which doesn't contain that line. Unpublish, and let's check that out. Okay, so it reverts to the previous draft. So if in this case, I had the published version and then separately I had the draft version that had a change. When I unpublished the published version, it did revert to the draft before the existing one. So that existing draft, let's go back to the moderate tab. Or what was the existing draft that I added, the change where I added this is a draft is here. So the revision is still there, and let's actually view it. So this is that draft that was existing. It was the current revision because it was the most recent one. But because I unpublished the published one, this draft got kicked back.
And what a person who is not an administrator would see would be not this draft, though. It would be a prior published version, right?
Yes, they would always only see the published version. So right now,
So if I unpublish something, then the previous published version would be what other people would see. Is that correct?
if you unpublish something,
Yeah, because if I publish something, then other people will see that.
yes,
And if I unpublish it, they won't see it anymore.
correct.
And they would see like the previous published version, regardless of whether I have a
No.
draft or not. Is that right?
Once you unpublish something, it's no longer visible at all.
Yes, to
Anybody.
anybody, me. or-
Only, I mean, only to webmasters. They can still see the draft, but just like this page, I unpublished the published version. There is no longer a published version whatsoever. So this site would not be visible to folks at this time.
Okay, so nobody would see this page.
Right. Yeah. If we're talking in terms of general public users and members.
To have them see it again.
And
Okay,
it would be green too, right? Would be green, it would be in green. if it's
Correct.
showing, like that.
Yeah. So I just click the apply button so I can publish my homepage again.
right.
And it has published this here.
Okay.
And if we get into this sort of a thing and we're doing a lot of fiddling,
Mhm.
are these always numbered sequentially so that if we look at the number of something, that tells me what order things happen?
Not necessarily. They are system wide. So it is not just counting your revisions, it is counting all of the revisions across the whole system. So I got lucky with these because I just made changes a few minutes apart. But you'll notice that these, and actually it might be your entire site, not the entire MyLO system, but it might just be your site entirely. So these might not always be in order because you may make changes to other pages at a different time. So that might not be the most reliable way to find out the sequence. You might refer to the date for that.
Okay,
It looks like they're still increasing though. They don't, is that
They're increasing.
the revision numbers, even though they're not contiguous?
Oh, yes, that is true. They are, yeah, they are going up at least. As far as they're ordered, that might not be as reliable, but they are definitely increasing.
Yeah, because sometimes, you know,
I have a,
same
go
time,
ahead.
taking time a few times when you keep saving things, it creates a revision every time.
Oh, right. Yes, it definitely does.
I have a question about ordering the material on the home page.
Mhm.
When last time I looked there, can we just look at an example of one? Because
of just the front
I want
page?
them to be, yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
I'm gonna zoom out just
well, but they, yeah, under, I want
manage
to,
front page
because they
item.
have a lot of events. Yeah,
Did you want to
because
see it
I
here?
wanted to order, yeah. I wanted to order my things by date. But what it displays when I say manage, it gives me the submission date, but it doesn't give me the date of the event. And that's the information I need in order to order them,
I
right?
see.
If I'm trying to order them by date. So I have to sort of make notes for myself to know which dates come before which, you know,
Right.
because it doesn't do me a lot of good to see the submission date if I'm
Unless you put
submitting a
it in
whole
as
lot.
part of your heading, you know, if you put
As
it in
part of the title.
title of the
Yeah.
title.
Right, but you don't normally do that. I mean,
No.
it has the date right there for you on the front page.
For the user, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I don't know why this doesn't just show us, if it's an event, the date associated with the event. Because that's what normally you want to order it. So people sort of go through the calendar, they don't bounce around to different dates.
Right. I can definitely take that down as a recommendation. I'm not sure how much of a heavy lift that would be or what that will involve, but to try to make that
Again,
process a little easier when you
I,
are entering or creating the events, if you go in order or like chronological order, that will at least help with laying the events out in either reverse chronological order or with those upcoming, and it'll be easier for you to manipulate them that way.
well, I agree, but the whole point of this page was to make it easier for us to be able to manipulate the information on the front page. I think sometimes these developers don't quite see the full picture of what it's like to be the user.
I think I love it. I mean, I don't have that. I only have 12 things on my front page, but you know, if you're right though, I have to take a note. Now, what's that thing on rank choice? What's the date on that? You know, so I do have to do a little bit, but to me, it's not that much.
Well, it's a lot better than it was. It certainly is.
Oh, yeah, I love it. Yeah.
If making the effort to supply this wonderful functionality to us, they should think a little further about what you need to know to use this. I
And-
I mean, I used to have to develop stuff myself, so I I know it's not easy always to think how a user is going to use something, but this seems so obvious that you you need that information. When's the date?
Now
And
I will bring
Elise,
that
I
up
think
to
your
the team.
solution to put them in the order of the calendar, you don't often know what's coming up. Sometimes you get 1 day's notice about an event, or sometimes you get a month's notice about an event. So you just, you can't put them in order.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, like I said, I'm not entirely sure what it takes to get the event date listed up on here, but I will bring it up to the team and have them give us an idea of what that
Nice.
will involve.
I don't even care what the submission date is. That doesn't mean anything to me. You know, I don't know about the rest of you, but what does the submission date tell me about how I want to order something?
Well, for articles that don't have an event date, the submission date would be fine, I think, because that article came in first and then the next one came in. But for events, it's really the event date that we're interested in getting straight.
Assuming that you don't have Ms. Di's, I've forgotten your first name, situation where things get thrown at you. They don't necessarily get thrown at you in a logical order.
No, but for articles, they can, I like to keep them up at least. I mean, somebody's put effort into writing this thing, so I like to keep them up for at least a month. So the submission date would be important to me to see on an article, which is like a newspaper.
Well, yeah, I guess it's helpful, but it's not, well, I mean, right now mine wraps, you can see it's wrapping around. Why couldn't they just add the event date in that column?
It may not be that simple. So that's why I want to bring it up to them and have them investigate and then provide us back with a quote on what that would take.
Who tests the betas?
It's myself and Elizabeth Leslie, my colleague.
Oh, okay. I guess we aren't, you as a user aren't quite the same as we, our category.
Right. But that's what these office hours are helpful for, because I get to hear you loud and clear.
I really like the way it is.
I'm being loud and clear. I'm
I
sorry.
love it.
No, you're totally fine. This is the best way to reach out and hear what folks are doing and needing. So I don't always get that same response or feeling in the Google group. You're almost like our beta testers here. Well, folks, we did go a little bit over time, but I am going to go ahead and cut us off here. I'm sorry. If we have any other questions, certainly send them in the Google group or send them to me at alebron@lwvc.org or MyLO@lwvc.org.